Hi, today we are going to talk about more specific and complex use of TACAN than following a straight line along a radial. Sometimes there are terrain or airspace limits around an airfield that prohibit more direct approach to land from certain directions, and TACAN arc is a way to literally fly around them. As usual, I am not going to dig into all the details, as fascinating as they are. Instead, let's look at the most important bits. The top of the chart contains information about TACAN channel we have to tune to, as well as the runway data, heading and altitude above mean sea level, or AMSL. Set your altimeter to local QNH value before attempting the approach, so that all the altitude values from the chart can be used without the need for conversion. Another important information are safe altitudes around the TACAN. MSA in circle stands for minimum safe altitude within 25 nautical miles from LSV TACAN and changes with your bearing to it. The rectangle with emergency safe altitude provides a blanket value within 100 miles. Use them for planning how to get to IIF. IIF stands for Initial Approach Fix and marks the beginning of the ARC procedure and gives additional information regarding how to proceed. IIF is located on TACAN radial 283 at 17 nautical miles from it. Inbound to IIF, you have to fly no higher than 15,000 feet and no longer than 10,000 feet, as indicated by the values and lines above and below them. When commencing, you need to fly at the 10,000 feet at a heading of 103 degrees towards the TACAN. Lead DME means that you have to start the initial turn at 15 nautical miles from the TACAN, so that when you finish the turn, you will be at the correct arc radius. It's easier to fly those turns at moderate speeds and bank angles, ideally 250 knots indicated, which gives 35 to 37 degrees of bank. Also, I extended flaps to half to reduce angle of attack. After the initial 90 degrees turn is completed and the TACAN needle is pointing straight to the right, bank slightly to the right between 2 and 3 degrees, which is in the middle of the first graduation on the attitude indicator bank scale. This is to enter a gradual turn, which will follow the arc at the prescribed DME. Here, I'm also descending to 88 hundredths of feet. Once established, I trim the plane and select TACAN radial 356, which will be needed later. Always be a couple of steps before your aircraft. While following the arc, I constantly scan my instruments left to right, vertical speed, altitude, speed, attitude and TACAN needle along with DME value. Scan after scan and I correct any errors as soon as they appear. The trick to staying on the arc is monitoring the distance trend and TACAN needle position. Ideally, the needle should be deaded at 3 o'clock and the distance should stay at the desired value. If you see the needle moving towards 4 o'clock and the distance is decreasing, just bank more until you return to the desired parameters. If you see the needle moving towards 2 o'clock and the distance is decreasing, level off and wait. It's better to catch any errors quickly and react with small corrections. I level off at 88 hundredths and during my instrument scan, I pay attention to TACAN course line on the attitude indicator. It's barely visible, but it's there. Once it hits the center, I know I've cleared the ridge line and I can descend to 55 hundredths of feet. I establish new attitude, trim and select another radial. This lead radial marks the beginning of the turn to final, and it should put me on an extended runway centerline. I am established on the final heading of 210 degrees as written on the chart. Slight descent is allowed here, trim, and I am preparing the plane for approach. Landing lights on, unlock the landing gear lever, switch HUD to approach mode and select TACAN course line to 210 to see if we are on the right track. In case you can see the line now, it looks dead on. I slow down to just under 200 knots, which is a good approach speed, set flaps to full and gear down. From now on, I focus on speed, course and descent profile. The first two are self-explanatory, but the profile requires monitoring of both DME and altitude. Lines below the altitudes mean I can't get lower than that value, until I pass through the corresponding DME. I can either perform step descent, with leveling off at each stage, or I can fly at a constant vertical speed. Since the descent angle for this approach is 3.4 degrees, I can use the HUD for that. The small green markers are at 2.5 and 5 degrees, so I just eyeball where the flight path marker should be, and I adjust as required. Then I cross-check with the DME and altitude to make sure I am at the prescribed points or higher. It's the same instrument scan as before, but with the added HUD. Don't fall for the trap on the right, that's a highway. The runway lights appear shortly after, right in front of the plane, as a prize for precise instrument navigation. At this time, I can slow down to approach AOA, not speed, and place flight path marker at the end of the runway. I should have dimmed AOA indicator more. Final check to make sure that the landing gear is down. Passing 2500 feet, which is 650 feet above ground level, and is the MDA, or minimum descent altitude here. I see the runway already, but if I didn't, I would have to execute a go-around, which is also described on the chart. I have to initiate flare earlier than usual, because I'm flying steeper final approach, and it's difficult to judge distance at night. Gentle touchdown straight into aerobraking, and the air brakes go out as well. A little bit to the left of the center line, but I'll take it. Flying TACAN approaches and messing with old school radio navigation in general is very rewarding and is, in fact, a good training in precise flying, which always pays dividends during other activities. After all, the old adage begins with aviate and navigate. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.